What's up, everybody? We're back. Welcome to Unfiltered. I'm ChanManV, and of course, joining me are the boys, Richard, Lewis, and Destiny. What's up, fellas?
We're good. All this time away, and you still couldn't think of a good fucking introduction.
What's up? What's
Oh,
up?
come on,
What's up? What's up? Yo, yo, yo!
That's right.
It's ChanManV.
Right. I've already established a precedent, man. I
Like,
got to
really,
do
I
it the
thought-
rest
well,
of my
it's not-
life.
It's not so much that, so much as like I thought Unfiltered was coming back, like ready to be part of internet culture and shit. Yeah, you're still doing this shitty fucking thing where you try to appropriate black man culture just to make the stream better. Like,
Dude, that's...
I don't know. Like, as somebody, I'm just saying, like, as somebody that's in a relatively privileged position such as yourself, it's kind of disappointing you have yet to acknowledge that, and you still think that you can appropriate other people's cultures just to like get your show a little bit more, ratings. I don't know. I'm just saying it. It's like I expected better of you, especially. I don't know.
Stephen, while we're talking about cultural appropriation, what do you think about Chris having fucking plastic surgery? Like some sort of aged Michael Jackson going on over here. What the fuck?
Dude, I'm like all beautiful and shit now, right?
Mate, I'm not gonna lie. If it was a nose job, they missed a bit, brother.
Oh, fuck yeah. Oh my gosh.
Jeez.
No, it was not plastic surgery. I just can breathe finally. I would have taken a few things. I would have taken a few edits, a little bit off here. That would have been nice. That would have been nice.
Are you gonna do like the big lips next and then say it so you can eat properly? We all know you're trying to fit into that yo 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 thing a little bit better. Like it's
Oh my god. Oh man. Starting off with a bang, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
But no, I couldn't believe it because I was like, it was just before you even talked to me about doing the show again. And I was like, oh, I'll just have a look at what ChanMan's doing these days, content-wise. I look in his YouTube channel. It's all this fucking, like, rhinoplasty or whatever the fuck it's called. Like, what the fuck? He hit the fucking post-unfiltered life really rough. That's what I was thinking. Like, it hit him like a ton of fucking bricks, man.
Next up, I'll have the really light skin, too, that's going to be coming. So, thick lips, light skin. It's coming. It's definitely coming.
This is unreal, man.
All right, guys. Well, excited to have this, just kind of return with this show, obviously. And thought for those of you that haven't possibly been watching these two guys, like or Destiny's channel or Richard's other shows and things, figured we'd catch up a little bit, see what everybody's been doing. Starting off with you, Steven. Like, what games have you been playing recently?
I'm trying to do Jump to Hearthstone, but I only got like a month and a half in, and then Metal Gear Solid 5 came out, so now I've been dumping like all my extra time into that. Hopefully I finish with this game up within the next couple of weeks, and then I go back to Hearthstone again.
Shouldn't take you that long, right? I've heard it takes like, I don't know, what, 70 hours to finish?
I don't know. I have this dream in the back of my head where I 100% the game, just because it's a Metal Gear Solid game, but the game is exceedingly bad in a lot of different ways, so it's been hard to keep up motivation, but we're doing it. I think I'm at like 50 or 60% or whatever right now. 57%.
Isn't it exceedingly sexist as well, Stephen?
Oh,
yeah.
come on, what game's
That's what
not
I've been told.
exceedingly sexist these days?
No, well, like
come on.
it's really bad. No, it's really bad. Like I've said this a lot before, I guess, on my stream or whatever. Like the Metal, for some reason, it seems like as weird as this is, with all their strange tentacle porn and other issues, and the guys trapped in the basement that never fuck women or whatever. For Japanese RPGs, always seem to be kind of ahead of the curveball when it comes to like having good women characters in games. Like if you think back to like the Phantasy Stars and the Final Fantasies and just whatever Japanese RPG games and the Metal Gear Solid games especially, like for the most part, the representation of women in those games is always really good. Like if you can think of any Japanese RPG, any Final Fantasy game, there's usually like a handful of female characters that are really well developed. Their entire identity isn't just an extension of the main character. Like, oh, who's that character? Oh, well, that's the girlfriend of that character. Like you don't have to say that with any Final Fantasies. And the Metal Gear Solid games are no exception. Like in every Metal Gear Solid game, in Metal Gear Solid 1, Meryl was a decently strong character on her own. Sniper Wolf was a decent character. The Mei Ling chick, the Naomi chick was a doctor. Like there might be some sexual jokes every now and then, but for the most part, they were good characters. Metal Gear Solid 2 had fucking Olga. The Emma chick. Metal Gear Solid 3 had the boss. Like in all the Metal Gear Solids, you learn about how amazing Big Boss was, and then in Metal Gear Solid 3, when you play him, you found out his mentor was a woman who's not sexualized at all. And then Metal Gear Solid 5 has Quiet, who is like the archetypal like dream woman, who is she handles her shit, she's very sexy, has huge boobs, and never fucking talks. I don't know. It seems like a really strange step back in terms of like good female representation in Metal Gear Solid games, but that's the whole other thing. I don't understand that.
To be fair, they did come up with a good reason about why she has to like be naked the entire fucking time. What was it like? She breathes through her skin. I mean, that's genius, guys. I couldn't come up with that.
But she still wears like leggings and you find out that there's some old guy in the game called Code Talker who also like is photosynthetic. So but he wears clothes, maybe because he's an old man. I don't know. It's pretty.
Well,
yeah, I'm not sure.
You better enjoy this one because it could be the last one
It's
ever.
most likely the last one, and I've accepted that.
Even though they've denied it, like
there's a lot of problems. It's like the game is almost the way that it plays out. Like the game feels like a non-canon fan fiction. Like there's so much. Do you know anything about the Metal Gear Solid games? Either of you? Do either of you care? I don't know.
I played the first. I mean, I haven't played the last few of them, but
okay.
Yeah, I haven't been keeping up with the last few, but I did play the first several.
The way that all the games are set up, this game was just supposed to be a bridge between all the games, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2 and 4, you play a soldier, and all you talk about, or not all you talk about, but there's a lot of references to the past and a character named Big Boss, right? Who was like the guy that kind of started everything. And in Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 4, those all take place after that. And then in Metal Gear Solid 3, you get to play Big Boss and you start to learn about his origin. And you always learned about him as like a bad guy. So playing his origin is really interesting. So this game was just supposed to be a bridge, essentially, between Metal Gear Solid 3 and a game called Peace Walker into Metal Gear Solid 1, or Metal Gear, right? It was just supposed to be a bridge, so it should have been pretty easy to write for. There should have been a lot of identifiable characters. But instead, you get like all this weird fucking shit that like doesn't fit into the rest of the series at all, and it's just like a bunch of weird shit that's introduced that's never mentioned in any other game ever. This fucking Skullface dude, this parasite shit that's never brought up in any other game. Like, I don't know, it seems pretty fucking stupid to me, but
All right, so Metal Gear Solid, and after that, Hearthstone then? Are we going to be doing any Hearthstone stuff together, Steven?
But I don't know. I kept messaging you desperately that we could, and you always fucking ignored me. So I guess
you're fucking lying, you liar.
What do you do on Value Town? I guess now that I'm in the game, I should probably know this. What is?
We talk about the game. We talk about just everything. Imagine meta. You remember what meta was for Starcraft 2?
I don't know. There's only like one episode.
Well, Value Town's basically.
Oh, is that the show where we miss high fives of each other? We can't do that though because we're on internet. Gotcha.
Basically, that's what Value Town is. Hearthstone meta, basically.
What you guys discussed?
I was enjoying your Hearthstone stream, Stephen. I like don't watch Hearthstone, but I was enjoying watching yours. It was pretty good.
I was enjoying it until you tried to buy those damn skins for $10, which was
dog.
The worst
shit.
What
do you mean
waste
the worst?
of money, man?
You get new fucking taunts. They interact with each other. If two people with the same skin run into each other in the game, that one mage will be like, "Let the games begin," and the other dude's like, "They already have." How fucking sick is that shit, dog? Where else do you get skin interactivity?
I love Hearthstone, and I can't bring myself to spend $10 on a damn skin in that game. It's crazy.
I mean, if I was saving up for rhinoplasty, maybe I couldn't afford skins either. Like, damn, dude, I don't know.
I was gonna say, put it towards your kids' college fund, man. What the fuck are you doing?
Please. All right, Richard. I know you've been up to a lot, so you've just been Mr. Busy. I can barely even talk to you like in the last few weeks. You've just been everywhere. But latest news from you though is you're pretty much taking a break from journalism, and why don't you explain that? Why don't you explain that a little bit?
Well, yeah. Look, I don't know how long it's gonna be, dude. Like, it probably won't be as long as I would have liked. But I just needed a change. Like the whole Daily Dot thing was like, and I've talked about this a little bit. I don't want to go into too much depth because I don't know if it's fucking, it's not really my style to shit on a former employer or anything. But the eSports section was great. Like the eSports section is great. It's the best fucking eSports publication out there. But the rest of the Daily Dot, man, it's just infested with like these fucking social justice warrior types. And it was just like every time I tried to write something that wasn't eSports related, it was just being turned into something ridiculous. Like that I didn't believe, that I didn't, want my name on it, right? So like, the example that I've already talked about was I did this piece on Reddit, and I was interviewing there's this subreddit called Subreddit Cancer, and basically what they're dedicated to is just sort of exposing like mod abuses of power, and when corporate influences kind of take over subreddits and stuff. And there's a hardcore little group of them that live on Reddit, and what they do is if one gets shadow banned, they always keep cycling their accounts so they can retain control of the subreddit. And so far, Reddit haven't shut it down or anything. Now, one of their moderators was using an account that was called Gamergate Fan, right? And for some reason in the article that I published, the editor, which isn't the editor of the eSports section, another editor, he changed my work so it said after that like quote from Gamergate fan, it said Gamergate is an anti-feminist movement. Like just like added all of this shit about like what Gamergate isn't, like what it demonstrably isn't. And I was just like, I don't want my name being attached to that. That isn't what I believe. I don't think it's true. So there was a couple of other instances like this. Like I tried to write a piece about the Tim Hunt situation, and they didn't want to publish it because they felt like even though his accuser had now been proven to have lied in print multiple times due to a recording that surfaced, they didn't want to run it because they didn't want to go after her job. But it was okay for her to get a Nobel Prize-winning scientist fired. And it's just this weird, skewed political bias in the publication that I just couldn't deal with anymore. It just didn't, even though the eSports section was in a bubble, I didn't want to fucking deal with the rest of the publication because, I've said it all along. I don't want to just write about eSports until I'm fucking 50 years old or something. Like, there has to be something a bit more fulfilling out there,
Oh, so it's not.
Oh, man.
It's not really just a break from journalism. It's more just from that. Just from
Yeah,
the
but
site, Daily.un, basically.
Like, everything that's fucking miserable in my life. Like right now, my life's fucking great. Like I got fucking job offers left, right, and center. I got fucking money in the bank. I literally, this is like a good place to be in. All the things that were causing me stress. And making me even slightly miserable were all related to the journalism. Like, you write something, you put it out in the public domain, you have to deal with all the spastics saying it's not true, it's not true, it's not true, it's obviously true, but it's not true. And then, and then you have to deal with all the Reddit bullshit that comes with it, like, can it go on Reddit, can't it go on Reddit? What are the Reddit mods going to do this time? What bullshit's coming out this week? And it was just, like, super stressful. It just wasn't worth my time. So what I'm doing is I'm in talks with publications. Like Reddit will simply not matter in my next job. It simply will not matter. It's going to be a non-traffic focused project. So that's good. It gets me away from retard, basically. So, and that's all. Yeah, what's up?
This is kind of interesting, loosely related.
Oh,
The Wikipedia
scared.
article for Gamergate, what it used to be, I think, like a year ago versus what it is right now. Holy shit. They've they'd taken the battle to Wikipedia, man. They edit like every fucking article like every day until they try to get changes to stick. The before and after is like pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah.
What is
But I
this?
mean,
Let me see.
On the left is like what the Gamergate article
used
is
to
like,
be?
I think like 6 months ago. Yeah. And then on the right is what it is now. Like the huge fucking change. Holy shit.
I mean,
Oh,
like,
wow. Okay.
did you hear about Wikipedia? I mean, you'll have read about all the problems in general they've had over there, Stephen, where it's like, there was a protection racket for Wikipedia posts. Basically, there was a group of like 60 people who were going to like celebrities and saying, "We'll protect your Wikipedia page from like not being edited to say you're a pedophile or whatever." But you've got to pay us a fee.
The paid,
There's
yeah.
a
I've heard
service
little
for
bit of
this?
that.
This was in the news. This was all.
What do
in the
they
news,
do?
of course.
I mean, they just have some
They
kind
just
of.
have people that constantly monitor the pages, and if they're like renowned,
That's crazy.
I could be wrong, but don't you get like, aren't you known as like an editor on Wikipedia? Like, if you contribute a lot of work, like, doesn't it help you, or is that not true? I'm talking.
Yeah,
a little
there's
bit
some
on
ki-
that, but I know that like when
yeah.
you do editing, like it shows up with your IP and shit, and that.
Yeah, I believe that's true. And if you,
I mean, like, obviously, there's been a bunch of stuff where it's like we know, like, government bodies are going in and editing their own pages, and we know journalists.
Well,
are
like
doing this.
I think Wikipedia is auto banned like every IP address from the White House or whatever because interns and shit used to go and like staff would go and modify that shit so often that they had to just do a blanket ban on like every IP coming from the White House or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know if people will know about this story specifically, but there was a journalist for a newspaper called The Independent in the UK called Johan Hari. He was like one of the original social justice warriors, like a massive piece of shit. Like all of his editorial columns were just these ridiculous like screeds against white male privilege and all of this bollocks, And anyway, he was proven to be like he was plagiarizing or simply making things up. Like he would take quotes from a book where the person he claimed to have met had said a thing, and he would put it in, and he said, "Well, when I met Nelson Mandela or whatever, he said this, and it would be from a biography on Nelson Mandela that he didn't write, and he said that yeah, and so he was like, well, that's not plagiarism, that's not misrepresentation. Incredibly, this kid, when he joined the Independent, he had won an award. I think it was the George Orwell Award for best young journalist or something, which is absolutely sickening. And the Independent were trying to stand by him and trying to say, well, we all make mistakes. It's a disciplinary issue. As if there's any journalist out there that doesn't realize plagiarism or making up quotes or whatever is fucking wrong. Right. Then, on top of that, they found out that he was going in, and anybody that had said anything bad about him, like other journalists, other authors, he was editing their Wikipedia pages in a malicious fashion. So this was like one of the first sort of instances I could think of where, like, you sort of saw like some rabid social justice warrior just going fucking absolutely out of control. And Wikipedia's had a fucking problem with this for a long time.
Yeah, definitely not an easy problem to fix. I mean, for every service there is for protecting Wikipedia pages, there's probably services for vandalizing Wikipedia pages. So that's never going to end. So Richard, recently you've been talking about the whole players union, your players union kind of crusade too. You trying to get it started, and you seem to be. You've talked about it in the past. I know I've heard you talk about it in the past, but it seems like you're more committed to doing it now than ever. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, look, I mean, right, so we all know, I mean, okay, so like just take, for example, today, like I've just announced that DraftKings are coming into eSports. They've done a multi-million-dollar deal across 6 organizations. This is the type of money that's coming into eSports right now. There's going to be other announcements coming very shortly. We're talking phenomenal, ridiculous amounts of money. I mean, again, if I was Steven right now, I'd be feeling somewhat suicidal and despondent, but because he like me, he's missed the big payday. He's missed the boat. But like the current players, whatever the game, are gonna get a fucking fortune. If there's somebody there to make sure that the players get their value. Right now, what's happening at the moment is I'm seeing a lot of team owners that are signing these multi-million-dollar deals, and they're doing interviews with newspapers and going, player salaries are going up, and yet when you see what they're going up to, it's still not commensurate to the value they bring to the organization. So I wanted to just sort of take it upon myself to try and get the ball rolling, because here's the facts, right? If you leave it to players, 2 things will happen. Either it'll become some little fucked up treehouse clique where only the cool kids get to be involved in the union, which is not how a union should be, or nothing will get done because players are scared about reprisals and maybe getting frozen out of earning salaries by organizations. Keep in mind, all the team owners have already fucking unionized anyway, effectively, in all but name. They're all together in a little group right now. So they're protected. They're doing their collective bargaining to get a better deal for themselves. It's not happening for the players. So I wanted to go out to I was out doing a bit of a mini speaking tour type thing.
Celebrity tour. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, you know how it is, right? Yeah. And I was talking about like esports journalism and stuff. And at one of the conferences I was at, there was a bunch of people, investors in the room. And the good thing about this is, like, this conference was hilarious. It was like speed dating for venture capitalists with too much money and not enough sense, Like, everybody in there was like, oh, you got an idea? Can I fund this idea? Fucking awesome. I got offered, like, so many jobs. Like, we'll hire you as a consultant. I'm like, look, just put your dick away, right? Just buy me a drink first, you know what I mean? Fucking hell. So what I was trying to do was convince investors to put in one-time cash injections with no equity for the purposes of having a slush fund for the union. That's what I think we need. And I've already got lawyers on board who are going to do pro bono work, and whatever else the players are going to need.
So why would investors do that, Richard? Especially investors that might not even be.
I'm a hell of a salesman.
You must be more than a hell of a salesman. No, what else are you offering, dude?
It's not altruistic. Well, I'm not offering those guys anything. Fuck those guys. But it's not altruistic in the purest sense, because obviously the way it was pitched to them was, look, if you put the money into this, right, you obviously get the credit for doing that, right? So if you want to invest in something else in esports down the road, you can say, hey, we were the guys that helped set up that player union, and we're not fucking with that at all. So if you were going to take a venture capitalist that obviously has done something altruistic that benefits the fucking esports scene, or are you gonna like want to go and take money from the likes of that Martin Shkreli motherfucker who, raises the price of a $13 tablet that cures toxoplasmosis to $750 a tablet just so he can make $20 a day, sleep on a bed of money. And by the way, he owns the League of Legends team already, and is looking to buy more. So, who would you go?
We're going full socialist up here. To be fair, there's a lot of other stuff that goes on with that medicine guy. I don't like how that played out in the public.
So what is that? Yeah, what is that, Steven?
I mean, he's taking advantage of a system that's super fucked up, and nobody seems to want to talk about that. I don't know why. I think the Obamacare thing, the way that Obamacare was pushed through was not good. Like what we have right now, like I agree that it was a necessary first step in like getting socialized medicine in this day and age. I think it's something really important for the United States. But like one of the biggest reasons why he pushed to make that medicine so fucking expensive, right? It's because people don't actually pay for the fucking medicine. It's because the insurance companies are the one that pay for it. So the fact that there's like no actual like control on price and any of like the pharmaceutical market is like a huge reason. Like it's a super fucked up issue that's like always been pervasive in American medicine. Like the fact that like people will charge so much for a fucking drug, not because they know that that's the value or not because they know that's what they can get for it, but because they know that a insurance company will always fucking pay it no matter what. Like, and some people end up getting hardcore fucked because of it. Like that whole system is super fucked up. But then like this guy, jumped in and took advantage of it. It was really easy to like demonize like just this one dude. And I think he is an asshole. Like I don't disagree with that, but I do think that there's like a larger problem overall that should probably be looked at that it seems like not many people were willing to discuss.
Well, that whole issue with insurance companies paying it that's not even just medicine. I mean, or it's not even just concerning pharmaceuticals. It's also any kind of medical service. Like when you go to the doctor, I know there's been a few times where my wife will just be curious. She'll ask, how much is it for this, right? And it's like, I don't know, $200. Let's just say an example. But how much is it if I don't have insurance? And it's like $100 if you don't have insurance. So they're just gouging the insurance companies, which in turn ends up, it's us that ends up paying for it. The folks that actually pay for insurance. So
I don't know. What about this for an idea? Why can't we have a government that limits the amount of profit you can make from fucking medicine? Am I crazy?
Sure. Yeah, but I mean, again, like, and not to sound, because everything I just made it sound really bad, but then you've also got the fact that a lot of failed medical research, which is the majority of medical research, has to be paid by the successful drugs as well. So even though insurance companies end up paying a fuck ton for medicine, the pharmaceutical companies some people argue that they have to charge that much to cover the amount of failed research. And there is a lot of medical research that goes on in the United States. So like it's a really, really, really complicated issue that I don't know. Yeah. It's really. I don't know, like the medical. It's like when I saw this issue come out and everybody get like super pissed over this one guy. It reminded me of just like people who try to like make the issue like so fucking simple when it's like a really big problem in the United States that like needs an actual somebody to come up and like really address it and figure out like what the.
Well, I agree with you
because Obamacare really didn't do anything, and.
I agree with you in that sense. It reminded me of that. What was it? That fucking Lenny the Lion bullshit or whatever the fuck it was. Where it was like,
oh yeah, the lion, right?
Yeah, that dentist motherfucker. Yeah, that dentist motherfucker shot the lion, right? So like that's right. Okay, obviously, if you're against animal cruelty of any kind or hunting of any kind, right? You're against that to begin with. But for some reason, he just became the fucking poster boy for something that people already know is fucking, not cool. So I don't know why everybody went after him. Like he was the only guy who was doing it that day or whatever. You know what I mean?
Like of all the I got so mad on my stream about that. I don't think it's a big fucking deal at all. Like of all the fucked up shit that goes on in Africa, the only thing white people give a fuck about is when a fucking lion gets killed. I got like hella rustled over that shit. Like imagine you're some fucking poor as fucked up like somebody lives in like Central Africa and some fucked up shit, and then like you finally see that white people are caring about your country and it's because a fucking lion gets killed. Like how much of a cockblock or a mind fuck is that? Holy shit.
What is the current? Yeah. What is he doing right? What's the deal with the dentist now? Is he?
Oh, he got fucking murdered or some shit. People try to vandalizing the shit out of his business, calling him a lion killer and shit. A bunch of fucking poor fucking.
Well, I saw some headline that
people mad that like a lion gets killed when we like have millions of fucking cows and shit like shoved into little machines like every year. I don't know. I thought it was funny. If you're vegan, I think you could complain, but I think anybody that eats meat should shut the fuck up and chill the fuck out.
Well, come on.
There's a lot of people.
It was a little more than that. I mean, he obviously, they were luring the lions off of the preserve.
It's a fucking lion.
Yeah, but he's not doing that, right? So he just went out to Africa and said, "Look, motherfuckers, I want to shoot a lion." Which sure, that makes him a piece of shit, like in my opinion, right? But like, what about the people people who were like, yes, we will illegally facilitate this for you. Like, nobody went after, like, the guy that fucking put the breadcrumbs down. I'm sure lions don't eat breadcrumbs, but you know what I mean? Like,
And I
that
think
lured
it's
the
still,
lion out. Like,
I think this jury's still out on whether or not, like, did the dentist, like, intentionally fuck with this lion? What, like, common sense would lead me to think that, like, I really don't think that this dentist would actually go after that lion. Like, it seems like a bad idea in every sense of the word when there's so many others to hunt. So you have to wonder, like, was the dentist guy actually fucked by the people that went with him, or did he actually go out of his way? Like, what?
It's most likely the people. I mean, that he hired.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't want to say
he's
like,
not gonna go.
like
I want
the
that
other,
one. I want that
people
big ass like Simba looking lion out there. So go get him for me. He's not gonna be like that, right?
I mean, I wouldn't think so, but I mean, I don't want to like say definitively, you know. But like people are acting like it's already been solved. Like, oh yeah, of course, you know, like. It was definitely, the dentist definitely intentionally did it just to fucking kill lions because he hates lions and he watched The Lion King too many times and he was mad that, you know, like the good guys won in the end, so he just wants to go and fuck lions up for the rest. Like, I don't know.
so anyway, you know, in a similar way, yes, Martin Shkreli became, you know, the poster boy for an issue that is complicated, but still disgusting, whether it's complicated or not. He didn't help himself, you know, when the fucking journalists were coming out and saying, you know, why did you do it? He's like, you're a moron. And then when they said to him, like, how do you sleep at night? He's like, I just take Ambien or whatever. You know, it was like, when you're being, yeah, he really did that, right? He really did that. So when you're being that flippant about being a major asshole, like potentially pricing people out of life-saving medication, you are going to get fucking wrecked. In the public sphere, you know.
The value of inelastic demand. You cannot. It's not like the demand for medication goes down when you're dying. Like you have to have it. So sure, and it's pretty fucked up.
So back to the
do
players.
You know anything real fast? Do you know anything about what the Affordable Care Act did in the United States?
About what?
Do you know what the Affordable Care Act? That's what everybody calls it, Obamacare. But do you know
what
it did in the
yeah.
United States?
What?
All it did was it made it so everybody had to buy insurance. Like that's all it did.
It required everybody basically.
That's the only change. Is it made it so that every single person in the United States had to buy insurance. So like,
hang on, isn't that a bit of an oversimplification? Because provide...
Well, it made it so you couldn't reject people based on like pre-existing conditions anymore, which was important. That was a good thing. But like other than that, like there were no major changes. There was no like government provided option, no single payer option or whatever was introduced, and yeah, but I mean that was pretty much it. It does nothing. It's like one of the most toothless things in the world of like socialized medicine. Like I think as a European, like if you saw it, you'd be like, oh wait, that's Obamacare. Like you would be surprised that so many people are so angry about it. Like all it did was it made the biggest part about it was that it made insurance purchasing compulsory in the United States. Otherwise, you get a tax fine for it. And then yeah, it got rid of like some of the worst offenders. Like you can't reject people in pre-existing condition anymore. And then like that's it. Yeah. It's pretty toothless.
All right, back to the players' union, Richard.
Yeah, back to the players' union.
After we've taken a good 15-minute tangent there.
Well, that's unfiltered, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Anyway, basically, I was trying to you know, get these people to put money into it, but like, you know, I don't know what's going to happen. Apparently, and again, this is players in a nutshell. A lot of the time, it's really divided politically. Like I've got players coming to me and saying there's already a union, but we're not necessarily invited and we don't have any say involved in it and stuff. And then it's like we'd really like to come on board with your union. And I'm like, well, the union only works if it is a union. The right. Clue is in the fucking name, right? Like you unify together. So I don't know what's gonna happen with it, but you know, I've already got a guy. We're going to make a website, I think. We're going to have a registration form. We're going to get a manifesto out there. I got a bunch of people ready to help me out. I already got people who are committed to putting the money in. So it's there. We can make it a reality. And here's the key thing. A lot of people have said, oh, this is just Richard Lewis trying to, like, implant himself into the fucking esports scene, like as if I wasn't already there after fucking over 10 years or whatever. But I don't want to run a union forever. I imagine that would be incredibly boring. And it's not what I want to do with my life. So I just want to get the ball rolling, do it for like however long till it gets stable and we have enough people in, and then I want to be voted out. I want to have an election or whatever for my replacement, and I want them to vote somebody in as the new head, and I'll be like, ta-ta, leave all the money in the bank, and then there you go. You can just fucking run it. But at least it's done, right?
Yeah. And the most important thing for a union is, I think, you know, planning out how to run it is having the right people, obviously running it. Just former players are usually good candidates, right, for running unions, but also treating it as a, company. It's a business too, right? It needs to be sustainable too. Once this initial
You got to be
infusion.
careful how you approach that sustainability. If you got the guys walking around breaking legs, if you don't join the union,
Well,
we got a problem.
Well, you know what I mean, but it has to be sustainable too. It can't be just like the initial infusion and that's it, right? There's definitely, that's usually the hardest part, is keeping it going, especially when you're trying to build up like membership and things like that, right, in the players union. And what game do you think you'd see you'd target first, Richard, if you were to start this?
It's quite complicated because right now CS:GO has the highest level of investment. There's more money coming into that probably than any of the esports right now. There's more interest in that. It doesn't, Valve aren't like Riot Games, so they're not completely controlling their product. They're willing to stand back and let other people do what's best for the community. So I think the CS:GO players need to get some of that value. I think they need to get some of that money. I think they need to realize the strength they have and what they bring to the brands that they represent. But on top of that, the most corrupt and bent and horrible and disgusting esports scene is without a doubt League of Legends. I mean, it's fucking ridiculous. Even once you get outside of LCS, let's just imagine LCS was good in terms of it being ethical and not just one big fucking marketing kind of exercise for their game. Let's talk about Challenger Series. Now, Challenger Series is fucking repellent. What's actually going in on there? Like, there's players that live in a gaming house where they don't even have their own room. They share sometimes with as many as 4 other people in one room with just bunk beds or roll mats in some cases. They're not salaried. They get board and food basically, and yet they got to train like a pro. They got to play like a pro. And they're getting milked by an organization that wants to get them into LCS, either because then they can get bigger sponsors or because they want to sell the slot once they get to LCS. And an LCS slot will go for between $500,000 and $1 million at the moment. Team Dignitas, wow. Team Dignitas looking to sell one of their LCS slots. They've already had bids of $750,000. That's confirmed by Odie himself. But here's what's crazy, because these new venture capitalists, they don't give a fuck. They got money to burn and they just want to get involved in the scene. You've got challenger slots that are being talked about being purchased for $1.3 million just for a challenger team.
Wow, that's a lot. I didn't realize it was that high. I mean, I know the spots are sold all the time, but that's a crazy amount of money.
So I mean, when you're in that position, right? Like, those players deserve a fucking salary, right? But I know players that play for organizations that are owned by multimillionaires and they don't get a salary. I know organizations that have one person running the team and the house and everything else, and they're paying them like a paltry amount, like $200 a month. And these are all young adults, Some of them are deferring college. Yeah. Some of them are straight out of college. Now, the whole reason sports players, well, one of the main reasons why sports players are paid so much is that you're ultimately sacrificing doing anything else with your life. And in a lot of cases, maybe you can't do anything after the sport due to debilitating conditions or the risk of injury or whatever else, which of course isn't a factor in esports. But you defer college, you defer a real job, you defer work experience, and you're not going to be back on the labor market until you're in your mid-30s, early 40s. Totally depends on the sport, of course. Now, we're not giving esports players that sort of cushion. And yet they're doing the same thing sports stars are. They're deferring college. They're putting off real life experience. And yet some of them aren't getting any money at all. It's unacceptable. It's just simply unacceptable.
I think the problem you run into in esports is very similar to everything that I guess people have said about game development. How if you want to be like a programmer or whatever, if you're really into games, like game development seems like one of the most brutal fucking industries out there, because they'll work the fuck out of you. They have huge crunch times. Like, you get totally fucked in development. But the problem is that, like, anytime you threaten anything, you're like, well, fuck you, I want to quit. There's literally like a line of people behind you who are ready to step in and do your job at half the cost, just because everybody wants to be in game development, And I feel like pro gaming is kind kind of similar, where it's like, yeah, I want to play video games for a living, like $200 a month to get to play video games, man, that's fucking awesome, you know? Because you have to consider too, a lot of the kids that play video games have no concept about anything. Like even a lot of these guys making 6-figure paychecks, like have never lived on their own before and had to pay their own bills and know what it's like to, you know, wake up and go and do a job that you don't necessarily want to do, because if you don't, you know, mom and dad aren't going to cover the utility bill for you. Like, so when I feel like it's like the perfect storm to like fuck people over. Like if you wanted to exploit somebody in any industry and you didn't want to get into the NCAA, then you would come to like esports, because again, it's a bunch of kids who have no real life experience, like paying bills, who don't understand anything about money or whatever, and there's a million people that want to do it.
Well, true, but it's an also an issue of just not being educated about it. I mean, if there's a player union that is continually trying to get the message out that these things are happening, then eventually you would think the player population would start to come on board with this more of a just.
Well, but the problem is that nobody wants to be made an example of. Like it has to be all together. Like you can't have like one player who's like, I want more money, team, because they'll just get like booted or whatever and then fucked, and I don't know. It has to be like as a union thing, right? There's a reason, right? You have no bargaining power on your own as a single person. There's the whole concept of a union is to give collective bargaining power to the labor side of the market, right? Because you can't do it one at a time.
I mean, the other thing I want to stress, of course, is that the term union has a very specific legal connotation in the US. And I don't really, everyone's calling it a union. I don't really want to use the term union. I think when we formalize it, it's going to be called an association. And I want it to be multiple platforms, all games. Like I want it to be about collective bargaining, sure, to get better deals for everybody. I think that's an integral part of what an association will offer. But I also want to be dealing on the day-to-day with the minutiae. As someone signed a shitty contract, can we get on an individual level? Can we offer something? So does someone have a mental health issue? Can we refer you to a professional that we can get a discounted rate on or cover the fees for? The other thing I'm really passionate about right now is, I don't know if these were around when you were playing, Stephen, but like when you sign contracts now, basically organizations are going out and signing up players and they're putting these buyout clauses in. And the buyout clause is there so if a player wants to get out of a contract, they can pay it. But again, in some cases, they're locking you in and not giving you a salary. So you can't buy yourself out of the contract because you're not earning any money to do so. So you would need to rely on a loan or savings or something. Then on top of that, the person who owns the contract can sell that player for higher than the buyout, and they're under no legal obligation to tell the player they've even had an approach. And this is going on in League of Legends every fucking goddamn day, that people are basically buying players for ridiculous amounts of money. That player is a commodity. They're being used for profiteering. And some of them are getting really shitty salaries, no salaries at all. They don't even know, hey, can I buy myself out of a contract so I can go and actually negotiate a salary directly and maybe get a better deal 1-for-1 without the organization taking $50,000 or something? And this is what I mean. That's got to stop, because right now, that's like cattle. I mean, that's like, seriously, that's like cattle. And it's happening
I would
in
have to
CSGO
say,
now
like,
as well.
and that speaks to, like, I feel like that would speak to experience too. I don't know how it works in professional sports. Like, yeah, I would never sign a contract where somebody could trade me away and get paid for it. Like, fuck that. I want that money. What the fuck? No way. Yeah, that sounds super fucked up.
I mean, but this is, the CSGO organizations are doing this now, where they sign a player and they're like, we'll sign you as a streamer or whatever the fuck, and you get into some egregious contract, and then a team comes in and says, hey, we want to sign you to this team, and they go, oh, well, even though I'm not playing in the team that the organization's in, I am contracted to that organization. You'll have to buy me. You'll have to pay a transfer fee. Now, keep in mind that in soccer over here in Europe, we're already looking at how the transfer system might be illegal. There's a huge legal challenge coming in for that, and yet we're operating on a system that isn't even as advanced as that isn't even as fair as that. So, yeah, there's lots of fucking problems in the industry, and I only think an association or a union is going to get them fixed. Otherwise, organizations are just going to shamelessly profit from players until somebody stops them. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Agreed. No, I think that's a really great crusade that you're on right now, and hopefully...
Well, not everyone shares that view, surprisingly, Chris. So not everyone thinks.
Of course, not everybody's... I mean... Teams are not going to like that, right? I mean, that's the nature of it, right? This happens in every sport. Players union against the league owners and the teams. I mean, football, right? NFL has been like a huge thing in the news the last summer with the whole Tom Brady thing, right? So
Deflategate.
yeah, Deflategate, right? But definitely good luck to you, Richard. I think if anybody's gonna pull it off, I think you're the one that can gather
Have you ever
the right
talked
people.
to Snoop at all? Do you know anything about him?
Oh yeah, Steven
Oh,
for
is
sure.
this a joke? Oh, are you baiting me right now?
He's not baiting. That's
Right,
that's what's funny is he's not even baiting you.
Oh,
It's just-
wow.
Because I know personally that Snoop was trying really hard to get like a players union thing going. What have you
Yeah,
guys like
I
butted
remember
heads or
that.
something on it or?
Really hard. Okay, so let me tell you what Snoopy was doing. Snoopy was publicly posing as caring about wanting to create a union while simultaneously running everything, like all of these big issues, by Riot directly because he wanted to maintain a good relationship with them for obvious reasons. He was actively stopping other people from initiating a union, people like myself, and then at the first offer of a fucking paycheck, because he wants to keep his little rock and roll fantasy of esports alive, he goes and works for Unicorn, a betting company. So no, he wasn't trying hard to create a union. It was just something to
Did he
make
drop
him
the
look
union
good.
thing entirely or?
Yeah, of course, completely. At the first offer of a paycheck as well. You know, it's disgusting what he did. Like, I have zero respect for that guy. And he should know better, man. He's, like, from a working class background in Scotland. Like, he should fucking know better than to do that. Like, seriously, that guy, I couldn't even believe it. Like, because that's the thing. I was talking to him about it, and he was, like, on Skype to me, oh, your bull in a China shop approach won't work, You'll never get in a room with Riot that way. I'm like, fuck it. If the players legitimize what we do, Riot have to fucking sanction it. It's their league that suffers if they don't. Because, the players could just say, right, well, we don't play any LCS games this week. And then you end up with a lockout type situation. So they'd have to interact with us, and that's what I would want anyway. Because that would be,
That poses an interesting question, too. Would Riot be fine with LCS being locked out?
Well, no. Fuck no.
Would Riot be fine with LCS being locked out?
Or just just having the players lock out and just nothing, the games just don't happen. They're still making money.
Deals, like, that they need.
That would be a really big deal, I think. Riot puts more money than like any other scene into like getting that LCS shit going. Like that would not be good for them.
Yeah, I'd be really curious to see how quickly they would react if that happened. But okay, well,
so I mean,
yeah.
Seriously, fuck that guy. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, it's one thing to like just idly stand back and not do something. It's another thing to idly stand back and be okay. I don't care about this issue. It's another thing to idly push back. To aggressively push back. On stopping a union. I would even have respected him more if he did that. The fact is, he publicly posed as doing all of this stuff. In reality, all he was really doing was just sort of having meetings with Riot, like just to catch up with all his buddies out there. And then at the first offer of a paid job, he was involved in it. And he made some sort of self-pitying Reddit post about how hard it was and how it could never be achieved. Well, in 1 week in San Francisco, I seem to have achieved more than he ever did. So I'm perplexed as to what he was doing for the 6-7 months he was harping on about it.
You should. Do you have a link to that Reddit post? I'd like to read it.
The what? Sorry.
The Reddit post. That's an old Reddit post.
Yeah. I'll find it. I think it's in when Unicorn announced on the League subreddit.
Yeah, that could be it. That could be it.
So.
All right. Well, let's let's definitely move on. But that's again, I wish you good luck on that, Richard, and that would be great. That would be amazing for the scene. We've been talking about it for. I think a lot of people have been talking about it, speculating for a long time how important a player union would be.
I still think realistically we're a long way off, and I don't even know if this will be the thing that tips it over the edge. But at least it's like the scene in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, when McMurphy tries to throw the sink through the window, and he says, "At least I fucking tried, god damn it." So.
All right, let's move on. You mentioned talk of Unicorn, and you even mentioned DraftKings coming into the scene. Let's talk a little bit about just gambling sites, fantasy sites, just all that business. I mean, that's pretty much been, the big influx, I think, from the standpoint of money, sponsorships, companies coming into esports, particularly CS:GO, because CS:GO has the ability or has this ability to have, value pertaining to content in the game. Therefore, there's the ability to have a third-party virtual currency market, and that's what's being, that's what's led to these kind of gambling sites with the whole jackpot system and what's supposed to be fantasy sites, but in reality, it's basically that just that making much of the revenue there. What do you guys think, or Steven, what do you think of these companies, really coming in with force? I mean, DraftKings especially, because DraftKings, they had this large amount of funding recently, and they're just spending it purely on like 60% of the funding, I believe, is going towards marketing, whether it's ESPN or it's, entering into the eSports space. What do you think of that, Steven?
I don't know. I really don't like gambling. I don't. I think it's a vice, and I don't like marketing it. I don't know. I feel like taking like a gambling sponsorship as a streamer would be the same as taking like a cigarette sponsorship. I don't know. Just personally, I don't like gambling. I think that gambling is an abuse of the human psychology. Like you really should never enjoy it. You just do because your mind plays tricks on you. I don't know. Maybe because I worked at a casino for too long. I'm just not a big fan of gambling. Like if you like to do it in your own time, that's fine. But when you look at like the general age of an esports market, or a lot of people whose disposable incomes are as big as their parents' allowance for them is, the fact that a lot of people are young, and I don't know, there's too many like potential shady issues there. I'm not a big fan of that.
I better end those talks with DraftKings then, and to sponsor this show.
Okay, yeah, probably not.
Richard, what do you think?
No, I find that a really weird fucking standpoint to take. Like, I mean, okay, first question, I guess, Stephen. What's so wrong about vices? What's so wrong with vices, mate?
Well, I mean, a vice by definition usually has some repercussions. No.
Yeah, but the repercussions are inherent to the act, right? So, a smoker, feels unhealthy and gets fucking lung cancer or whatever at 60. Gambler is going to lose some money. A drinker's liver is going to shrivel up. There's always somebody who uses prostitutes on the regular has an increased risk of getting an STD. Doesn't mean the vices are bad, though. There just has to be some sort of inherent downside, or everyone would do it, right? Like that's, I mean,
yeah, sure.
I don't know. So it seems really weird. Like, you drink, don't you?
I personally, I don't, but I don't. It's like a thing where, like, if you do it, like, I really don't care. I'm just not comfortable advertising it to a group of I don't want to say children, but like when like the average age of somebody that watches like esports and shit is like, what are we, like 16 to 24 or whatever? Just it's not like a group I'm like I would be comfortable advertising gambling to, because gambling, especially when you get into like virtual currency and shit, like the CS:GO skins, and especially when you see like a lot of people like glorify like what's really unhealthy gambling behavior,
it's very addicting.
If you look at like Soda Poppin', like I don't know how many people know this or not, but Soda Poppin' never gambles any money, right? He gets paid by that company to go online and gamble. Like they give him the money, they fund him. So when you see people like glorify behavior where he gets really upset, like really emotionally upset when he loses a hand, like that's like that behavior is like key behavior of somebody that has a gambling problem. But so like when you see stuff like that, or like Phantom Lord when he loses like a big CS:GO skin bet or whatever, you see him get so emotionally upset and then walk away and he's like ah. It's like that kind of stuff is indicative of gambling problems. But then that's the funniest stuff to see like on a gambling stream, and then you get a lot of people that get involved in the gambling because of the referral links and all that shit. Like I don't know. Like I said, like if you do it personally, like I would never go on a crusade to make gambling illegal ever. Like I would never do that. Oh my God. I would never do that. But to advertise it to a group of like young impressionable males, I don't know. I'm just not comfortable with it.
I don't know about that, man. Like, I've said this. Like, I don't know if it's because I'm from the UK and we have a very different outlook on gambling. But I've said this all the time. I've made this point multiple times. Nobody really likes it, but I'll just repeat it. And that is that everyone talks about, kids gambling. Kids gambling is fine, right? The best time to gamble is when you're a kid. You can't lose a house because you can't have a mortgage, right? You don't have any children to feed because you're a child yourself. There's no responsibilities. You're never going to end up destitute. There's a million safety nets to protect you. It's adults gambling that are the fucking problem. Like when daddy creeps into his child's bedroom, smashes the piggy bank against the wall, takes his fucking kid's savings, and then bets it all on black and loses, and has to send his kid to school and no dinner money for you, right? You're not getting any fucking, you're not getting anything. Not this time, right? So, like, that's adults gambling's a problem. Being a kid, fuck it. Nothing can happen. Like, nothing bad can happen to you.
Well, I mean...
Well, but
that's
you
not
can
true.
you can start to feel the addictive fire in a young person, because all it takes is a couple wins to fuck somebody's mind up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always fucking reference this, and then I never go and find the fucking study. I took an AP Psych class in high school because I was so fucking enlightened, right? In our book, there were 4 different ways. I don't know if I've actually talked about this on this fucking show before. You stop me if I have, I guess. There were 4 different ways to learn something. Okay, one was you did an action a random amount of times, and then after a random period in time, you would be rewarded for it. One was you did an action a set amount of times, and then after a random amount of time, you would be rewarded for it. One was you did an action a random amount of times, and then after a set amount of time, you'd be rewarded for it. And then one was you did an action a set amount of times, and then after a set amount of time, you would be rewarded for it, right? It had to do with like reward schedules and shit. And they had these birds that would peck a theater, right? And that's how they would test for it. So the interesting part about the study was when the bird would peck the feeder, they would turn off the reward and they would see how long would it take to break the reward cycle. So like on the one where like you pecked a random number of times and then after after a set amount of time you would get a reward, and all of the set ones were very easy to break. If you peck one time, you get a reward immediately. So they peck one time, they get a reward. But when they turned off the reward, the birds would peck like 5 or 6 more times and then it would be done. And like each one would be like, oh, it took like, 4 trials, 6 trials, 5 trials, and then the bird would stop. But the one where the bird pecked a random number of times and then was rewarded for it immediately after the random number of pecks, that reward schedule took the birds like over 10,000 additional pecks in order to break them off of that learning thing, because they didn't know when the next one was coming, right? And that's the entire psychology behind gambling, where you put in an amount of money, and then after a random number of spins, eventually you'll get paid back, right? And then there's a whole bunch of human psychology tricks, the confirmation bias, like, oh well, I just won 1,000 fucking dollars on CS:GO skins, like that should be enough to cover all my losses. You don't really think about how many times you've lost. You only remember the wins. Like there's a bunch of emotion that goes through. Like there's all this unhealthy shit. And especially when you're gambling small sums of money, that's why I don't necessarily agree that like it doesn't affect kids more than it would as much as adults, because it's really easy as a kid to get hooked on that shit, where like you start gambling and then you win once or twice, and now all of a sudden you think that you're like a master gambler. And I've seen people do this in the dumbest fucking shit. Like even in fucking Eve, there was like a little betting thing where somebody would win one thing, and like after and they would feel so good about it, like, oh dude, I just won $1 billion on what was it called in Eve on I don't even remember what the name was. Summer Bling or whatever, and then like you would finally ask the guy, and after like 30 minutes of inquiry, you'd finally realize like, oh yeah, well I guess I ended up gambling like 3 times as much to win that amount, but they still felt like really good about the win and shit. Like I don't know, man, I really don't like, I'm not a big fan of gambling. Fuck. In this vacuum with no context and people can gamble responsibly, I have no problem with that. But there's been so many times that fucking like people are fucking stupid, man, and I don't know. I would never advertise it personally. I feel like I see where you're coming from, Richard Lewis, and that like it done responsibly, like it's okay. So I don't like looking at it from your point of view. Like I can understand how you'd be okay with it, but you have to understand.
Well, I mean, first of all, I am joking about the kid thing. Obviously, I forgot how easy it was to fucking trigger the spastics that sit in Twitch chat. Like, fuck me, they're just easy. But like the reality is, I agree with what you're saying. Yes, stupid people are gonna get fucking rinsed by gambling, like they can by any vice, any addiction, any whatever, right? But like, I just don't think that means that you should fucking put controls and constraints on it for the people that don't. I'm very uncomfortable with that, because sure, it's like you can apply that logic to gambling, but then you can go and apply that logic to anything else. And where does it end?
What are some other examples of like things you think you could apply to? Because if we're doing the slippery slope thing, what other things, like what would be something that you think I would agree with?
Definitely alcohol use, for example, like drinking booze. You could definitely apply to that.
Any of that.
Sure, fuck, but I don't think I would be okay advertising that either.
Well, see, now that'd be a hell of a sponsorship. Like if I could get that,
I mean, it would be very lucrative, but I mean, so are the G2A sponsorships, but
Patron.
Like, no, not at the moment, mate. They're late with their payments, so.
Are they? Might be, but the people that got paid by them initially got fucking paid the fuck out.
Like, they're late on their payments now? I didn't know.
Jackpot, motherfucker.
They're late on their payments.
Yeah, they're probably going to go the same way as Kingwin, probably.
Oh, wow.
Can you think of something that's not like a universally bad vice that you think that I would be okay supporting? That would
Well, like so a non-universally bad vice.
Like
is prostitution a bad vice?
Porn? Would you be object to?
Do you have a problem with that?
I don't think I would mind. I wouldn't mind advertising prostitution, because I don't think there's anything wrong with
right. There we go.
Okay.
So there we are. So you'd take a brothel sponsorship, wouldn't you?
Sure.
Right. And now imagine, right? Imagine what happens when these fucking puritanical assholes come in and they're like, "Oh, Destiny, he only took the brothel sponsorship because he's such a misogynist. It's about oppressing women and they take your fucking brothel sponsorship deal away." That'd suck, right?
Yeah, but I don't think that's necessarily the same as what we were talking about earlier.
Well, it is because the ESEA. This is where this conversation is leading into.
This is leading to ESEA, exactly. Which is,
Yeah.
ESEA is disallowing any teams that have gambling site sponsorships to compete in their event. CSGO.
Oh, sure.
This is in CSGO. So Richard, I guess
Yeah,
you're
I think almost
against
every entity. I want to say Blizzard does the same. Where if you compete in the WCS, you're not allowed to have any. I think they call them adult sponsorships. So like if you're affiliated with like if YouPorn wanted to like sponsor you,
I
you
think
They
would
actually
sign
put
up
them
to-
under it's under the morality. They use the word morality in the
Morality
contract,
clause.
so you can't advertise. This is what's in the morality clause for what sponsors you can be affiliated with: gambling, prostitution, tobacco, alcohol, and firearms, which are like all the best things on the planet, right there.
Yeah.
So it's fucking terrible, really.
I mean, I know
And
I've heard Blizzard definitely doesn't support the gambling site sponsorship things, but they don't disallow it either, because like for instance Hearthstone, right? The Archon Team League was sponsored by Alpha Draft, but I've heard that certain times they couldn't even mention the word Alpha Draft. They could show the emblem, but they weren't allowed to actually say or promote anything from the site verbally. So it's kind of weird. They don't like completely disallow it, but they do have that morality clause. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, I mean, I think all that's going to change real soon anyway, because look, I think it's really unrealistic to be saying to organizations like right, okay, we want to cut off your fucking revenue streams. Now, I'm all for locking out dodgy companies and unethical companies and shady companies and companies that don't pay money.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Like, no one batted a fucking eyelid when Kingwin and G2A come in shitting money left, right, and center, right? And that what they do exists in the gray market, right? So it's not black market.
Gray market is like the nice way.
Gray market. Yeah, it's a nice way of saying it, exactly. And
gray.
you know, yeah, very dark fucking gray. Games developers don't like it. It has the potential to harm the development of games. Has the potential to harm the infrastructure of the games.
Potential. It has. I would take issue even using the word potential. Yeah, no, it's really bad. Right. If people are like starting to call out against like the gambling sponsorships, but they were okay with like the G2A shit, that's some shit where you're doing it just because it looks good. Fuck that. I have no respect for an entity that would allow like Kingwin and G2A to exist and then all of a sudden take offense of like gambling sponsorships. Nah, fuck that. I wouldn't be okay with that. You have to be consistent.
And you know, so I think nobody raised any objections, right? Nobody raised any objections about this, despite the fact that it could potentially hurt, and I will still use the word potentially, the fabric of the industry that we are, you know, a niche of for the gaming industry. Now everybody took that money, everybody put it everywhere, and nobody said, we don't want that. It's not good for business. It's not a good look. We just took the millions of dollars and we all shut the fuck up, and then we basically bled those companies dry. Like, I mean. To the point where Kingwin is probably going to announce his closure very soon, or certainly it's going to be a very different entity to the one that sponsored eSports left, right, and center. G2A looks to be following suit. So, where are we drawing this line? Look, gaming organizations have to be able to take revenue streams wherever they are. And look, I remember people going absolutely mental at me in like 2011. 2012, when I was saying, hey, that Papa John's CEO, John Schnetter or whatever he's called, he's a piece of shit. He's trying to fucking strong arm his employees into fucking voting a certain way because he doesn't want Obama to get a second term, because he doesn't want to have to pay the money to help provide his employees with fucking affordable health care. And I said, why are we supporting a business like that? And everyone went, Richard, you're out of your motherfucking mind. Just let us have this. Let us have the money. We got to take the revenue where we can. So people can't have it both ways. Like we're either saying we're an open market and we're for sale to the highest bidder, and we're not snobby or fussy about who that highest bidder is, or we're actually going to start looking at sponsors and choosing them on an ethical basis. You can't divide it. You can't just say, oh, well, the baseline is gambling. That's where it becomes bad. Anything beyond gambling is bad. Gambling's bad. But, you know, unethical CEOs and companies that fucking have diamond mines in South Africa that collapse and kill people. And yes, that has happened. They have sponsored gaming organizations. We're totally fine with that. We're totally fine with that, but gambling's terrible. That's a ridiculous stance, frankly.
All right, so do you disagree with ESCA not allowing teams with gambling sponsorships then?
Do they allow G2A and Kingwin sponsorships?
Oh, well, they haven't said anything about those two, obviously, but I mean, I think there's some kind of direct connection to just fixing games and things like that, right? I mean, if you have a very tight affiliation with these organizations, that there might be a little bit more of that happening. It's happened in the past. I think we all know all the different instances of fixing games and things like that, but having them actually funding your team too, or sponsoring your team could, be an extra incentive to do these things. You think that plays a big role, Richard?
Yeah, I do. I don't know why. Look, okay, I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna hazard a guess. ESEA and ESL have this partnership. I mean, as it stands now, MTG have a 74%, I think it is, share in ESL, which they bought for 78 million euros. They've bought ESEA outright and haven't announced this publicly yet, but it's true, and they will announce it soon. And I think this ESEA ESL partnership, they're really pushing to professionalize esports, and they're focusing on things that I don't really think we need to be focusing on right now, like the drugs testing, which seems it seems completely absurd to me that we're doing that, especially when there's been no studies to even determine what a performance-enhancing drug actually is in esports terms. Like, for example, everyone's talking about these nootropics. That would be the esports enhancement drug of choice, right? But they're not even on the WADA lists because they're a new thing. They're being developed, as we speak. ESEA, with this gambling standpoint, it's not even consistent to real sports. If you go and watch a soccer game, you'll see Bet365, loads of bookies sponsoring sports teams because there isn't a conflict of interest. So there's no players just simply aren't allowed to bet. If you're caught doing that, you're going to get a lifetime ban from the sport, or certainly a very long one. Sometimes even jail time if it can be demonstrably proven that you committed effectively fraudulent actions by subverting the outcome of a game for profit. So I don't really see why ESEA are making a big deal about this right now. It just seems, again, a very bizarre thing. I could name half a dozen problems I'd be more focused on if I were them. But there we have it. So I also like as well ESEA being the moral arbiters after they had a client that fucking turned your PC into a Bitcoin miner. I always love that. Hey, we've committed one of the most...
They can't do anything right from now on.
We have committed one of the most egregious and disgusting forms of cybercrime in the industry. But hey, now let us tell you how to behave. Like, get fucked, frankly.
All right, let's move on. I know there's a lot of StarCraft 2 people that are excited about Unfiltered coming back, so I gotta have a StarCraft 2 segment here. So Destiny, I know you're on some of the other shows like the late game and even sometimes Remax, right? And,
no.
So okay, yeah, not anymore. No, sorry, but in the past.
Why did you stop doing that, Stephen?
Oh God, oh shit! Here's
I had
another
my huge fucking blowout stream.
Here's another 5-10 minutes. Are you seriously asking, Richard? Did you miss all of this?
Yeah.
Oh my God! I should just.
Fun night, dog. You missed a lot.
I should just go to the bathroom at this point. This is another 10 minutes right now.
No. What happened? Seriously, Stephen.
Oh shit!
It's like a whole other thing. I think we were talking about Starcraft.
Yeah. All right.
No, please.
We can say it.
I've been away. The whole point is we're meant to get reacquainted with each other.
I know you're talking about the game. I'm in the middle of a fucking invasion right now on Metal Gear Solid. You were trying to get me to talk about all this shit. Like, I don't fucking...
Jesus
Christ.
Come on.
Yeah, basically, I had a lot of issues with some people in the
Yeah.
scene in the past, and I had a big stream where I decided to, like, share all of the shitty stories that I knew about these people, and Desiree was one of the hardest hit targets, so I don't think me and him are ever going to do anything.
Was that over the chick thing?
Yeah, all that kind of played into it, yeah.
But I thought didn't you have his dick pics or something? Is that
Yeah, but
true?
that's not.
That was another thing.
That was just one
thing.
of many stories
That was another...
of Desir's sordid past.
Okay, that was TLDR. All right, so Starcraft 2.
I like Desro. I've always, I do like him. I don't want to see the dick pics. But yeah.
This past weekend there was a Red Bull tournament that was Archon mode only, and Huck and MC ended up winning it, which was really, really cool. But talking about Legacy of the Void and Archon mode and some of the different changes, Richard, how much do you even know about this stuff? Like, do I even bother asking you about this? How much do you know about Legacy of the Void?
About my favorite game, Starcraft?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, man, since I've been gone, you've hosted a freaking Starcraft event, right?
Yeah, it must eat you up inside that I got it before you. But no, look, man, I don't lie about it. I don't play the fucking game. I got sent a Legacy of the Void beta key. I never used it. I haven't played since Wings of Liberty. But I still follow the scene. I still follow the scene. I just don't care about the game and like listening to fucking people cry about like the Zerglings don't do any damage in the Protoss with the thing.
Okay, Steven, what do you think about What do you think about?
How do you feel about if you don't? So, Mister, I don't feel passionate about game mechanics. How do you feel about the recent nerfs to the M4A1S, and why can't I just use the silenced M4 without Valve hating me and constantly nerfing my gun? Can you explain this to me?
Well, you know the answer to that because it was overpowered.
Oh, okay.
All right.
It's a very good meta shift. It's gonna make spray downs through smoke a lot more.
What do you think about one-way smokes? Do you think those should exist, or do you think they should be removed from the game? They were patched at one point, but now they're back.
All right, last thing, guys. Last thing on CSGO.
Although what I will say is it's the measure of a top-level professional team if you can find them all and use them to your advantage. But I remember them from Source. We had like one-way smokes in Source, and they were hugely game-changing. They took maps that were relatively open and balanced, and then gave them particularly a CT-sided bias. So
sure.
yeah, I've never really liked one-way smokes. I think they should be patched out the game. I think smoke should be smoke. And you shouldn't be able to see through it from either side. So,
okay. All right, back to StarCraft. No, Steven. Back to StarCraft 2. All right, back to StarCraft 2.
Yeah.
So Archon mode as an event, potential or just gimmick fad?
I mean, if they play it right, it could have potential, but this is one of those things where the implementation is everything. Like, I think that Archon mode could be done really well, but I think that you need, I think that the players have to be, like, you can't watch Archon mode between two just high-level players against two other high-level players.
You're like off the...
Jesus fuck. All right, is this better? Am I setting up enough for you?
Yes, that's better.
Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah, I think Archon mode has to really capitalize on the personality side of things. Like, when you get people, like, fuck, I say this, but I didn't watch the Archon mode at Red Bull. Like, I mean, Huck and MC are two of, like, the most well-known... Huck is one of the most well-known foreigners, and MC is one of the most well-known Koreans in terms of like personality. Yeah. MC is probably the most well-known Korean as far as personality. Yeah. I feel like that shit would be like really important to the success of an Archon tournament. If it started to get, if you just had like a bunch of like really high-level Korean players like playing Archon tournament, I don't think anybody would give a fuck. I could be wrong though. That might just be like
what's Archon mode?
Archon mode is
where two people can play on the same. Like the
well, they control one base. Like it's 1v1 like from the standpoint of inside the game, but two people can control the bases and the units on each team.
So. Sounds exciting.
Kill yourself.
Shut up.
So Archon mode, so you can understand, Richard. Archon mode is like when you're the only person alive and it's a 1v1 and your entire fucking team is screaming at you and telling you what to do, except they can't actually control it, even though they wish they could. That's what Archon mode is like.
Right, I get it. Sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's more of a...
I can see how that would take off and be hugely enjoyable.
Well, for me, it's more of a casual... I mean, it's kind of what they wanted 2v2, 3v3, social, like, from a social standpoint, play with your friends to be. So, I don't know. I feel like that it's more of that kind of play than it is competitive, in my opinion. Like you said, Steven, it's just 1v1, like, from a standpoint of production. Like, we see the same thing we see in, like, a 1v1 game, right? So, it's really tough to have that nuance of a team game being displayed. Macro mechanics. Yeah. Macro mechanics. Removal of macro mechanics, Steven. Good or bad?
I don't know, man. The way that Legacy of the Void is looking is like, this could be another 15 fucking hour. I think Cass is doing a show now where they do like a 7-hour discussion, right?
Just real quick here.
I I feel like the design philosophy of Blizzard shifted a lot between, I don't want to say between Brood War and now, obviously it's been over a decade, but like in StarCraft, it was like, the design philosophy was like, well, here are some simple units and like go have fun with them. Like Marines are pretty simple, Mutalisks are pretty simple, like all the units are pretty fucking straight up. In StarCraft Brood War, I want to say each race had only one spellcaster. I'm trying to think if I'm wrong there. Well, no, because you had the Defiler and the Queen. Although people really didn't use the Queen that much in Brood War. For Terran, you had the Ghost and the Science Vessel. Although nobody, I guess Ghosts weren't that common either. It seems like in Legacy of the Void, and I've seen this complaint filed a lot, that like every single new unit has like spells and shit. Like, holy fucking Christ, the Protoss army will have like Sentries and Adepts and High Templar and Stalkers. Like every single fucking unit has like spells and shit, which is way different than even Heart of the Swarm. Fuck, like I don't know, the massive amount of spells like makes things feel really weird. The Reaper, like I don't know, I feel like I'm fucking like I feel like I have to like watch my CS or some shit when Reapers come to my base and everything is a fucking spell and I feel like I'm playing a MOBA. Holy shit, I don't know. To see the design philosophy shift in that way. I don't know, and then people are talking about the removal of macro mechanics, like that was the only like delineator of skill in all of StarCraft. Like if you get rid of like Scarlet tweeted, if you get rid of macro mechanics, there's gonna be nothing left. Like that's really like that? So that's what high level StarCraft was whoever could mash the macro mechanics the best. Like I don't know, it just seems, I don't know, it's really strange. Should the macro mechanics be personally like? I don't think there's anything wrong with just having a flat APM check in a game, especially StarCraft and RTS, I guess in general. Well, I should just say StarCraft, but I'm pretty sure it was similar for Warcraft too, right? Like there were APM checks. Like if you're not fast enough as a player, you're not going to be able to do this. You know, and it's the same with sports everywhere. There is no good soccer or football player or hockey player that's like a brilliant strategist. But severely out of shape, right? Because you have athletic checks in real sports, right? If you're not athletic enough, you're not going to be able to compete no matter how smart you are. And RTS is the same way. Like no matter how good your strategy is, you're not going to be able to compete unless you can play quick enough to execute the actions that you want. Removing macro mechanics, I guess, lowers the ceiling probably quite a bit.
Well, I don't know if it lowers the ceiling, but it lowers the
even if the ceiling is still unreachable.
Like the barrier to entry. I mean, for instance, definitely it makes it easier for people to play.
I don't know. Like
game.
I'm hearing complaints from not the best StarCraft players, like Penguin. Is that the manager for?
Penguins. Yeah, Penguins.
My Insanity Penguin, right?
Yeah. No, and when I say not the best, I don't mean like he's shit, but I mean like people that are just like normal like GM players are saying things like the beginning of the game as Zerg is like kind of boring now because there's nothing to do, which is kind of a big red flag. Like that shouldn't be
the beginning of every.
because of removing like the Queen inject and shit. So like I don't know. I like without giving it a fuck ton of thought. Personally, I don't know if I don't think the removal of macro mechanics is a good idea. Like I think I'm okay with having the APM check. People are always talking about like, well, there's no meaningful decision. Like I mean, there's not very much meaningful decision about working out. Like it's not like some football players like I'm gonna build a huge fucking upper body and that's it and that's gonna be like my strategy for working out. No, it's just something you have to fucking do. Like there doesn't have to be like a conscious strategical decision behind every single thing you're involved in. Like some things are just a mechanics check, and if you're not fast enough then you don't make the cut.
Is that good even as a game designer these days, right? I think the current game design that's popular right now obviously revolves around, especially strategic games, MOBAs. I mean, part of Warcraft 3, mod is the main reason why it's evolved that way. And I think StarCraft's just trying to evolve in that fashion. And actually, I think it's a good idea.
I feel like if you were to take American football and you were to run it through as a video game today in the esports community, I feel like the field would be 50 yards long and the goalposts would be like widened and lowered so that it was easier to make kicks. Like I don't know, it's hard to say like what.
Well, that's
in terms of like, well, it's got to be easier. It's got to be more accessible. 100 yards. Do you know how long that is? First down should be every 5 yards. Everybody should get a chance. Everybody should get a chance to score in a football game. Like,
all the pro players are still going to be amazing when it comes to microing all those spellcasters you're talking about, right? I mean, they're going to crush anybody that doesn't have that APM ability.
Yeah, I guess, but like I said, like at the very top level, like that should be like there should be a pretty big. I guess to use like a personal example, like even back when I was back when I was like Diamond 1 in League, if I would make a Smurf account to play with my girlfriend or whatever off stream, or if I would just want to play off stream or level like a new account or whatever, like there were still games that I lost. Like there were still lanes that I lost in League, and that always kind of bothered me and shit. Like just whether I got unlucky or missed or fucked something up or whatever, because like there's not that much in League of Legends you can do. I mean, like there is, like don't get me wrong, like high level play is very different from low level play, but like compare that to StarCraft. Like in StarCraft 2, as like even as a former jam player, like if you were to match me against a bronze, silver, or gold leaguer, and you were to put me against them in 1,000,000 games, like I would win over 999,000 of those games just because I know my mechanics are better, right? Is that how it should be? I mean, like I kind of think so. Like if you've worked your mechanics up to a point, like at some point you should dwarf your opponent in skill such that like even with strategy they can't overcome how much of a monster you are, right? Same thing, and again to use another sports analogy, same thing with like professional fucking any sport like hockey, basketball, football. If you were to run like a high school team against like a professional level team, even if the high school team was running like the best plays and had good defense and all that shit or whatever, like they would get fucking crushed by the professionals just because they're so much stronger and faster. And like I don't think that that's a bad thing necessarily in an esport. I don't think so.
Well, I mean, in an esport, I don't disagree with you in a lot of those things, but from a standpoint of just a general game, I mean, I remember I was watching Forsen, like this was kind of Hearthstone streamer. Forsen used to be a StarCraft 2 player, right? And he was, one night he was breaking out StarCraft again for the first time, and he was playing like show too, so it was just like two Hearthstoners that used to play StarCraft playing each other. Yeah. And I remember his stream was asking him, like one of the donations with text to speech thing was like, never played StarCraft before. It looks really, really cool. Is it, is it easy to get in, or is it easy to get into / is it easy to master? And I remember Forsen saying it's hard for both of those things. Obviously hard to master. That's like no big deal for any game, but hard to even just play, as a casual player. That's kind of where we are. Like,
I mean, it can be relatively though. But I mean, to be fair, you're coming from fucking Hearthstone.
No, it doesn't matter. It's just
in literally like 1 month of playing. Like, is it
fucking mech mage, man? All right, what?
What as opposed to what? Face Hunter so much better? Are we gonna play the game here where we pretend that Grim Patron? Okay, if you haven't played Hearthstone, Grim Patron is the fucking Riven of fucking Hearthstone. All the Riven players
that are retarded as fuck.
Canceling auto attacks is so difficult. It's Riven. It's really difficult. Grim Patron, guys, like this is Grim Patron, okay? You're at turn 8. Did you draw the cards? Do you have Frothing? Do you have Grim Patron? And do you have like the proper activators in your hand? Yeah? Good job. You won the game. You played a very strategical game. You did it, dog. You drew the right cards. Congratulations. You win the fucking... Didn't draw the right cards? Well, sucks for you. Move on to the fucking next 20-minute game where you can fucking waste somebody's fucking life on your fucking bullshit ass deck. Don't fucking talk to me about you played Mech Mage. It's so easy. Yeah, it's fucking easy, but let's not pretend. I'm not gonna lie and tell you that Mech Mage is the apex of strategical fucking thinking in card games, okay? But let's not pretend that Grim Patron is some master fucking...
I never said Grim Patron was either.
Act like they're literally fucking General Patton, fucking World War II, the best strategies of all fucking time. Like, let's be real for a moment, okay? Holy shit. Macro mechanics are okay, all right? If you don't have a fucking APM to play, get fucked. Starcraft 2 is very difficult to get into as a new player, but so is Brood War, and Brood War is very fucking successful as well. You have to thrive.
That's a different age of gaming, though.
I feel like you need to thrive and focus on your alternate gaming community. Make it so the arcade doesn't suck shit.
There you go. All right.
You can ban people from hobbies. Like, focus on that side of things more. Give me fucking skins to buy. If I'm too fucking bad of a player to tech pass tier 2, make it so I can at least dress my tier 1 units up, so I can have a bunch of people walking around as fucking Jim Raynor or some shit. Fuck, man. You made fun of me for fucking buying skins in Hearthstone. I did it because I like fucking playing Hearthstone, and I like having my fucking skin dude there. I fucking dumped like $200 into Hearthstone in like a few weeks because I loved the game and it was fucking cool. It was awesome. I liked it. Cool. I spent a lot of money. I would fucking dump. I can't even imagine how fucking starving my child would be if I had the ability to dump money into StarCraft, man. I would have skinned every fucking unit. I would have had colors for my shit, new particle effects. It would have been fucking awesome. But you know what? I can't put any money into StarCraft. Fuck that shit. I think that things like skins and all of that, I think would be really cool. Different voice packs and shit would motivate people to play.
We talked about a lot of these things.
Yeah, all that shit would be cool. Dumbing down the game and making it some casual fuckfest where my fucking 4 or 5-year-old could pick it up in a year or two and be just as good as like a diamond. I know, but I'm just like, why get rid of it? Like, why would you get rid of macro mechanics? Well, they're kind of hard for new players. Like, I mean, fuck, like, appeal to new players in other ways rather than dumbing down the game for everybody to such an extreme extent. In my opinion, that's just my opinion.
I don't disagree that an arcade could have been that avenue, but we've already kicked that dead horse many times in the past. So, Legacy of the Void, you think there'll be a hoopla, like a big hoopla when it releases, or
Oh yeah, man, you get all those community figures that are gonna come back and make videos for it.
Like Unfiltered, right? That's why we're back. That's
Hell
why
yeah.
that's why
But we got
that's
in
why we're
early.
back.
Man, I saw Day 9 making a video about fucking CS:GO the other day. I nearly had a fucking heart attack.
What? Sean made a video on CS:GO?
Yeah,
why
Holy
CS:GO
shit.
is a great tactical game.
He brought
Wow.
up some decent points though. CS:GO is a really fucking good game. Like you have to admit
Yeah,
that
of course it is.
it went from being nothing. Fucking like, was it even a year ago when that one tournament happened and CS:GO got 200,000 viewers and everybody's fucking eyes turned? Was that a
That
dream?
was just like a few weeks. I mean, what, like a month ago or 2 months
No.
ago? Right?
It was like several
insane.
months ago, maybe a
Insane.
year back. Where like
Oh,
CS:GO
you're talking about the
tournament-
first time, the very first
Yeah,
time.
and it got
Yeah,
200,000 viewers, and like everybody turned it.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
That was after
right?
DreamHack,
CS:GO
yeah.
went from nothing to being like the third most popular esport, which it undeniably is right now, right?
Third?
It's League
It's
of
like
Legends.
Technically, if you
No,
look at the
it's the
Twitch
fir-
numbers,
it's the-
in terms of hours of content consumed
first,
and
yeah.
peak numbers, it's the first.
It's the first.
Okay,
yeah.
sure, but in terms of like price pool and everything, like I would probably say like League, Dota, and then like overall player base, right? League, Dota, and CS:GO. But sure, you can make arguments for it being higher than that. So yeah, I think CS:GO is a great case study, and CS:GO is a really unconventional FPS, right? If you look at what FPS is today, FPS is it has to be simple, quick, and no fucking thought, right? And game developers in the past have complained about this. The game developers of Red Alert complain like, we wanted to make an authentic shooter and we can't do it because everybody wants Call of Duty controls. If you can't run to a spot, instantly bring your gun up with no recoil and shoot and shoot and shoot, players get frustrated with the game and they quit, and people complain about that, right? Call of Duty has become the standard for like how FPSs are measured. Like, is your game quick, easy, accessible, no thought? And CS:GO plays completely to the contrary of that. You can't run and shoot in CS:GO unless you're on the fucking pistol round. You know, the way that spray patterns work in CS:GO, I think is unique to the game. I don't know if any other game has anything comparable to like the spray patterns. The way that the nading works and is so important in map balance and all of that. Like CS:GO is a very unconventional game, but it's like it's definitely top 3 in terms of most popular like esports today. So yeah, I don't think it's necessarily bad that Dan and I made a video like analyzing that, and I think there is a lot of respect that CS:GO has earned there, and rightfully so.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with him making. It's just, it's surprising. That's all it is, because I don't think I've seen him play shooters very often.
I think it was
If
from the
ever,
perspective of him
honestly.
like trying to make his RTS that he wants to start analyzing other games or whatever. I'm not sure. I think Richard Lewis really hates Day 9, so I have to like defend Day 9 like really hard.
Whoa.
Yes.
But
This is a good subject. This
You know I don't hate him. He's just a rude asshole.
Yeah, but when
I'm
the
gonna
God.
bring this on over
Oh
and
my
over.
God.
You're gonna hate him. When everybody
Still?
starts talking about how Richard
Still?
constantly shit talks Day 9, I have to make sure
Oh
that
my-
people remember. Oh, but that's okay. Destiny was really
So
balanced. You're like the you're
You
gonna be
still
like
hold-
the,
you still
you're-
holding
the
that?
key thing for
You're the
me
top
is that he just
to my,
doesn't
like-
come to CS:GO because
have you never have you interviewed him since
Rubio,
that?
you're here to make me look like I'm a centrist or like a central.
Have
like
you-
it's like,
Have
whatever-
you ever interviewed Sean since that one time, Richard, that he wronged you? Have you had ever? Uh-oh.
Wait, when
Did we
you
lose
name
him?
wrong?
Did we lose him? Shit. That was such a good
Oh
question
wow,
too.
he backed out
Such a
'cause he
good
knew that
question,
Reddit threads
too.
were coming.
Oh shit! I don't think I have your pictures in place too. Son of a bitch! It wasn't. Oh man, DDoSed. Shit, man.
What a
Yeah.
shit.
So Sean apparently wronged him like a long time ago.
With what? What happened? Are you allowed
It
to
was
tell
like
us?
it's just some. He'll tell you. It was just some interview. Like I think Sean was really busy and he was really short with Richard. And maybe a slightly rude way. I don't know. He'd have to tell you exactly the words, but he seems to know it very like he has it just ingrained or
Like on
burned
his
in his
sleeve or
brain.
whatever, like ready to throw
yeah.
up.
So he's
Fuck me,
has to
nice,
let
like-
that go. but anyways, while Richard's away, yeah. So Legacy of the Void, you don't think will be much of a
I don't know. It's hard to
much
say.
of
They're
a-
trying to do a lot with it. Like I hope for the best.
I honestly think, from the standpoint of like Blizzard's relationship with the community, and in terms of Starcraft and the state of the game, I think it's probably the best it's ever been. It's just I'm a little bit afraid that it's just a little too late, unfortunately. But just with all the other games going on now, and just all the other success, and just what. Oh gosh, everything's all messed up. Give me a second, guys.
Jesus fucking Christ, dude.
Yeah, fuck you. That's like Richard's fault, man. Hold on, I usually have your pictures in place. For some reason, I didn't have it this time around. All right, we'll take a quick break, guys. We'll be right back. Get Richard back.